Hey everybody, support for Mindful Metal Jacket is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their fourth-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. That's right, folks, the 4.0. Right now, you can join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code LAUGHBUTTON at Manscaped. That's right, 20% off. Oh gosh, 20% off and free shipping with the code LAUGHBUTTON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code LAUGHBUTTON. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Mindful Metal Jacket. My name is Joe List, and I am happy you're here, happy you're listening and or watching. And I'm just very grateful for your attendance and support. Today's episode is a special episode. We put together, I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus due to a very busy schedule and a whole host of things. And I appreciate everybody that has reached out to ask where the new episodes are. They are coming. We're working on it right now. We got a whole bunch of exciting new guests, professionals, comedians, musicians, all kinds of good stuff coming your way. In the meantime, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we wanted to give you some good stuff from the past show, some best of, if you will. And today's episode focuses on sobriety and addiction, which, if you're a fan of the show, you know we've talked about a lot. And some of the producers here at Laugh Button were kind enough to put together some of the best of those conversations on those topics. And it's really a great episode here. It's sort of a condensed version of the episodes with sobriety and addiction as the main focal point. And some of the guests today include Ian Fidance, a wonderful comedian and friend who I love, Rosebud Baker, and Patrick Holbert, who are all fantastic comedians who came on the show in the past and were kind enough and giving enough to talk about their own experience with addiction and recovery and sobriety. And I think there's a lot there, even if you're not in recovery or an addict. There's just a lot of great life lessons in there. And we also have Dr. Judson Brewer, who's one of my favorite guests, and he talks about addiction, not from an experiential place, but from a oh boy, I'm not smart enough to say. He studies it. He's a doctor from a medical standpoint. That sounds good, right? He talks about it from a medical perspective, which is really fascinating at the end. So you get a lot of perspective from people that have been through it and dealt with it. And then you get, like I said, a medical angle on it, which is just fascinating. And I highly recommend Judd's book called Unwinding Anxiety, which I absolutely love. And it's about addiction to anxiety specifically. But there's some great stories in here and some really funny stuff. And I think some really poignant stuff and stuff that we can all use that I think you'll get a lot out of. And it's, if you've heard these episodes before, the individual episodes, it'll be a nice refresher. And if you haven't, it'll give you a little taste of what you can go check out the full episode, because they're all up on the Mindful Metal Jacket feed right now and up on the YouTube. So please check them out and check out these comedians, Ian Fidance, Rosebud Baker, Patrick Holbert, all really funny comedians and extremely kind people, as you'll see and hear. And check out Dr. Judson Brewer, who's a frequent guest on a lot of podcasts. And he's an absolutely fascinating guy and just pretty brilliant, frankly. So enjoy all of that. And there's more new episodes coming soon. Well, this is a new episode, but there's more brand new episodes coming soon. And as always, I really appreciate your support. And thanks to everyone who's reached out and left nice reviews and subscribed and thumbs up and left comments. Please continue to do that. And no need for any concern. I am alive and healthy and well, and there will be new episodes coming out soon. So please enjoy this episode. And you know what? I didn't even prepare a quote, so I'm going to have to just pull one right out of my tits. And by tits, I mean head. That's where it all lives. Let me think of something good off the fly. What's one I say all the time? Well, the thing I say to myself the most, and is a good mantra to live by. And it's connected with sobriety and addiction even. My thoughts are not reality, and fear is just fear. I tell myself that about 50 times a day when I go down my hypochondriac moments, anxiety. It's just fear. Fear is just fear. My thoughts are not reality. And now enjoy this episode of Mindful Metal Jacket. Thank you. I love you. Didn't you have some drinking name that rhymed with your last name?
Sober Holbert. Yeah, that's
okay.
What my buddies called me that in high school because I didn't drink in high school, and I drove them everywhere. So they nicknamed me Sober Holbert, which is ironic because then I became a horrific alcoholic for almost 10 years.
Yeah, I have the same thing. It's interesting because I never drank in high school either. I was like, I had my first drink, I think like 6 months after high school, October of 2000. I graduated in June of 2000.
I've heard you mention that, and it's eerie because mine was October 99 when I was like 3 weeks into freshman year at college. So it's like our stories line up at that point just a year earlier.
Interesting. So you must have drank a little bit less time than me because you've been sober a little while longer.
Yeah, I drank for 9 years from 99 till 2008. So it was a pretty compact span there.
Interesting, because I feel like I drank for like 10 years. I guess I drank for 10. I'm trying to think. I guess I started in October 2000. I stopped drinking in December of 2012. So what's that? 12?
That's 12 years, yeah.
12 years, but there was periods of like, I'm not drinking now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, totally.
3 weeks or whatever of like 6 beers.
Horrible. I remember going on a cruise with the guys that called me Sober Holbert in high school. When we started drinking in our mid-20s, we went on this cruise, and I was like, I'm going to be sober on this trip, meaning I'm only going to drink beer and water. And if I just drink beer all day and switch to water when things start getting really messy, then that's sober. Like I'm not blacking out. So that's like sober enough.
How did it work out?
It surprisingly worked out really well. I was just pretty much drunk the entire like 6 days. And I remember getting my bill from the bar because everything's free except alcohol. And I remember my booze tab cost more than the trip itself. And then I lost several friends at the end of the trip. That was a trip. I don't know if you've heard me mention this. I got on a JetBlue flight in Tampa, Florida, on the way home from the cruise, and I immediately walked into the cockpit to request a selfie, and I was wasted. I was still drunk. I had a Hawaiian lei around my neck, a stupid fedora on my head. I'm like, let's take a selfie. This is way post 9/11, and they let me into the cockpit to take selfies with the pilots, and then they had a good laugh. And then I walked into the cabin and I picked up the phone and I told everyone on the flight, hey guys, we're going to do karaoke now. And people looked at me like, this guy's hilarious. Let's do like whatever. And I think about that now in the context of what's going on in the world. And I'm like, that's white privilege right there. Like that I waltzed onto a 747 and entered the cockpit within 10 seconds of being on the plane.
That's amazing. Well, this was post 9/11?
Yeah, this is 2006. It was summer 06.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, if you were a Muslim, you'd probably be dead right now. But
yes.
That's wild. Oh, good for you.
And that's what's confusing about drinking is because when you're this kind of a drunk, which sounds like you were probably a fun guy. Like when people think you're a fun guy and you are silly, people assume, well, it can't be that big of a deal, and I also was always doing well at work, and it just didn't have like on the surface consequences that everyone could see all the time. So that's what makes it hard is you have a problem and you keep getting into trouble, but it's just so much fun, so you have to keep doing it.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience. I would always do shit like that, and I always felt like I was killing, and often I was. And then all my friends also drank, and then and family. And it was always fun and silly, and you'd be getting laughs. And so literally nobody in my life was like, hey, man, you might want to cool it out a little. Like,
Yeah.
even when I've told the story many times, but even when I blacked out and shit in a girl's shoe and pissed on her rug and fell through her table, I had people just calling me and like, this is hilarious. Like everybody was calling me to be like, that's like the funniest thing I've ever heard. I had one friend
dude, you got a great 15 minutes out of this.
Yeah, people were like, this is great. And then my friend was like, I've done that like 3 times. Serious. Like my friend took a shit in his in-laws bathtub. Ooh. And we laughed and we're just like, that's great. So like at no point, maybe at some point I have to think, but like at no point really was anybody ever like, hey, I'm pretty concerned about your drinking.
Yeah. And then I did have that within a year of drinking. It was a mental health counselor on my college campus who I did work with. Like I was like a double life drinker. I was a student leader on campus, and she brought me into her office and she was like, I keep hearing these stories. It sounds like you become a different person when you're drunk. She said all the textbook things, and she asked about family history. I do have family history of alcoholism. And she said this classic thing that we probably say to other people now. It's like, well, I can't say that you're an alcoholic because that's not how it works, but you might be an alcohol abuser is what she said. And that made me, I just decided I'll just avoid her for the rest of college, and then I'll just drink however I want and it won't be a problem.
Yeah. So that's the thing with alcoholism, is sort of self-diagnosed, but nobody said, hey, you're an alcoholic, you're crazy. But when I was like, hey, I'm an alcoholic, so I quit, nobody was like, what?
Yeah.
Nobody was like, no way, man.
They're checking off their betting pool and they're like, oh, okay, Joe did it in 12 years. I win $500.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was like, no, that makes sense. Sure. And it's hard, especially in comedy, because everyone's so fucking wild. And
yeah.
I always talk about, I think I talked about this on this podcast, the idea of comedy Christmas parties has always been so funny to me. The idea of like, we're going to get together, let our hair down a little, have some fun, just get loose. Yeah. And you're like, okay, I've been doing that every night, but sure.
Yeah, so that's where I'm so grateful that the comedy came after sobriety for me, because if I used to work like, I guess, comedy adjacent or entertainment adjacent. I was a TV producer for many years, and we had Christmas parties. I worked for MTV. They threw their Christmas party at Hammerstein Ballroom. Like it was an insane party. Like people would get taken out in ambulances from drinking too much. And I always made a total ass of myself. Like I can remember pulling executive producers aside and like yelling in their ear while they're just trying to have a night out and like enjoy the music, dance. I'm pulling them aside, telling them what's wrong with the network. And I'm like a production assistant, you know? But when I'm drunk, I think I know everything now, but when I'm drunk, I want everyone to know that.
I did stuff like that. I remember in comedy. So wait, I want to tell this story, but you never drank while doing stand-up comedy. Is that right?
I guess I did, in the sense that my first open mics were when I was 19. I was in college and I was drinking. And then I did open mics again, not for until like 8 years ago. So and that was after I got sober.
Man, I was talking to Rosebud Baker a couple of weeks ago, and she's another person that quit drinking, and she said the same thing. I didn't realize, like, her comedy and drinking didn't overlap, which I'm sort of, I'm grateful that I started comedy when I did. I guess I wish I
just cannot imagine how many enemies I would have, you know, how many clubs I'd be blacklisted from or whatever, you know, like I don't know what kind of mess I would have made in that environment.
Yeah, I was good at behaving because I knew comedy meant so much to me. So I was pretty good at behaving, and I was really, really extremely skilled at pretending not to be drunk. I forget where I was just talking about this. It might have been on this podcast, or maybe it was just in conversation. I can't remember anymore. I do so much talking now. I have no idea. But I was really good at ordering a drink or having a conversation. If it was someone I didn't want to know I was a drunk, I was so good at just being like, okay, here we go. And just being like, hi, may I have a Captain and Coke? And I had 17 drinks. I was in like a brownout, but which essentially is lying. I was like a good bullshitter, but I could talk in that way of like, it's like Chappelle talks about how he has black voice and white voice. When he's like, I don't like that deal. I could do that drinking of just be like, I'll have 2 Budweisers, and I never got kicked out of bars for that. I rarely got kicked out because I was able to do that.
It's like the computer program took over in your head to like just pretend to be sober and go on autopilot. That reminds me of sort of the opposite thing where I was good at meeting women, and I loved picking up girls while drinking and stuff. And they would meet this version of me, this like totally keyed up, wild man dance party guy. Like I loved, you know, when like a dance circle forms at a bar and people are dancing, getting crazy. I loved being the guy like trying to like outdo everybody. And I would meet girls that way, and certain girls like were attracted to that or whatever. And then I would make a date for later that week or whatever to meet up. Like I would get numbers. I was rarely like a one night stand guy, but I remember having this problem of like, well, shit, they met like awesome Pat Miscellaneous. Pat Miscellaneous was my rap name. They met Pat Miscellaneous. Now I'm just Patrick after work. Like I gotta like amp myself back up to that level, which either involved getting drunk before the date or just like having to like pretend or something. So I don't know if it relates exactly to pretending being sober at the bar, but it's like basically playing pretend to like be this like cartoon character that they met on Friday night.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I relate to that with drinking and comedy in some ways, but similarly, like I got laid more doing karaoke than comedy. First of all, I was not good at getting laid and had no confidence. But like there was a couple times, 2 different instances where I just ripped it so hard at karaoke that girls were like, I'm going home with you. One girl was like, I'm going home with you and I don't care what you say, which was nice.
That's amazing.
Sexy. Yeah. And another girl that was like way more attractive than I was, and but it was similar because the next morning, sober, I'm a shy person and anxious and like, hi, I don't know. And it is hard. It's a completely different animal.
Yeah, and that's what's challenging about booze. It's socially acceptable to drink a lot, especially in New York City. It's a lot of people don't consider it a drug. And what's the point I wanted to make about it? Just that, like, it's fuck. I lost the point I wanted to make.
It'll come back.
Anyway, I'm drunk. I'm wasted.
Did you drink when you were this is a side note from a different, I'm switching thoughts midstream here, but did you drink while you were doing comedy, or did you start after you got sober?
No, I started way after I got sober. I started 6 years after I got sober.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
I don't know how people get sober like after already drinking while doing comedy. That shit blows my mind. Like that's like a fucking miracle to me. 'Cause I can't imagine, like, however hard it was to get sober, I think it's got to be like doubled if you're a comedian. 'Cause you're just around it all the fucking time, you know? And like for me, when I quit, I had to give up a lot of shit. I had to give up my friends. I had to give up my whole way of life. So I look at like you quit before or after you started comedy, right? You quit.
Yeah,
you were a couple years in.
I was many years in. I was like, God, I don't even want to admit how many years in. I was like 13, almost 13 years in.
Yeah.
I've been doing comedy
that's
for
like amazing
48 years.
I don't know how people fucking do that. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it was the career. My career was just going so shittily that I was like, all right, I gotta stop doing this.
Yeah.
This is not working. And But yeah, I mean, it was crazy to be around career stuff. I mean, that's what I think about is like drinking the way I drank and the way I'm sure you drank. We obviously didn't drink together, but to be in work environments drinking like that is so insane. But comedy was like that. I mean, I always think the funniest thing to me in the world is the idea, and I've been laughing about this for 20 years now, the idea of like a comedy Christmas party is so funny. The idea of like, guys, it's the holidays. Let's all get together. Just let our hair down a little. Let's just cool out and have some fun. Like, it's so funny.
Right.
Like the idea of a Christmas party is like you work in an office. It's very stiff and everyone's very, oh, hello, good meeting. And then you have a Christmas party, like, let's have a few drinks and loosen up. And the idea of doing that in comedy is just so funny of like, we're going to have an open bar.
If any of you haven't tried crack yet, we're going to get together for Christmas and we're going to smoke some rock.
But that's, I mean, it was like that on the road. Like I would be on the road and just the work was in the way of the drinking. I was like, let me see how drunk I can get. I would start now, but I got to do this fucking dumb show first.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was just destroying my career. And obviously I hated myself even more than I do right now, which is tough.
Yeah. Well, that's significant. I do think that it's funny, like, did your career get better immediately when you quit?
Pretty much immediately. I mean, like, I went to the Cellar like a month later. Like, I went to audition. I had been passed at the Cellar and then stopped getting booked. And then when I got sober, I was sober for like a month. And I was like, let me start trying to make things happen. Because if I'm just going to get sober and not try to do anything differently professionally, then what's even the point? So I went and started asking people like, hey, can you put in a word for me at the Cellar? And I got past at the Cellar, like, I think like I was like 5 weeks sober.
Oh, wow.
So
holy shit.
I started getting spots there and this clicking and popping is happening still, but only on my speaker, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention that again.
Hearing it.
All right, I'm never mentioning it again.
If we do have to re-record, I'm down. I don't care.
Oh God, you hate it. Like, you hate this episode.
No, this has been great. I was talking to Andy and Andy was like, cause he got sober after starting in comedy and it's really funny to me because he always talks about like, yeah, I got sober and everything got worse. he was like, everything just got so much shittier until he moved to New York. And cause in New York, I think you can just focus on comedy and it's almost like a Ponzi scheme, how quickly you can get ahead in New York just by getting better at stand-up.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Sarah and I always talk about, there's actually not, when you look at comedy, I feel like in general, there's not a ton of comedians who are really successful that are crazy drunks. Like it's hard to be a drunk and successful at comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some, but like in this city, at least, most of the really successful comedians aren't partying that hard. I feel like, but maybe I'm just saying it because I'm old and I hang out with sober people.
No, I think you're right. Cause there's a lot of people that are so fucking funny, so funny. And, you know, I go, what's going on? Like, why aren't they ahead of where they are? And the longer I'm around comedy and the longer, you know, you get to know people, you start to get to know more about them and you're like, oh, okay. Like you just start to see them around and you start putting pieces together and you go, that person is in their own way. That's the only reason why they're not ahead of where they are.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of like, I mean, I don't want to out people as like alcoholics or something, but I'm just trying to think of like, there's not a lot of people in the city that are like really doing well, successful, and are like drink very heavily. I mean, like Bert Kreischer's not in New York, but like he's someone that's like a party guy. He drinks a lot and is extremely successful. But he's made that his thing. That's part of his thing is like, I go out, I party, I drink, I do shots. I don't know. I mean, this is like
he's like, it's crazy. When I look at Bert, I'm like, I just look at him in awe. Like as an alcoholic, I look at him and I'm just like, you're a god. because it's like I can't I mean, to be able to like drink as much as he does, and then he'll like wake up the next morning and just fucking I opened for him in Philly. Yeah, it was Philly. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm going out with the fans tonight. And then tomorrow I'm gonna bike from Philly to DC tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And I was just like watching his Instagram story, like this guy's hungover and he's biking through several states in one fucking day. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, it's insane to the point where I've suspected that he was faking how much he was drinking, but all his everyone that really knows him well, and I'm friendly with Bert, they're like, no, he's drinking like that. Because I was like, he must be doing like Dean Martin, like drinking apple juice and pretending, or he's throwing beers underneath the thing. It can't be possible. But I think he is. He's like a superhero. But it's funny, as like we're alcoholics, the idea of like, I have the same thought of like, he's amazing. Like, I'm like, that's so cool. I'm like, look at him. But
yeah, I feel like I'm meeting like a DC comic hero. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, hi, you know? I don't know. He's really like, he defies the laws of nature.
Yeah, it's impressive. Because for me, I don't know how, you must have been pretty young when you quit drinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like 22.
Yeah, because I was 30, about to be 31. And that's what part of the reason when I hit 30, hangovers became a different situation for me. Like when I was 23, I would, same thing. I would drink like blackout drunk and then play basketball the next day. And then when I would hit 30, a hangover I'd lose a day of my life.
Yeah, man. I mean, the hangovers, like I could just keep going. When I quit drinking, like it was so weird that I even quit that young. Like there's so many times when I've just been like, why the fuck didn't you just like stick it out, you know? But when I look back at it, I'm like, there's no way that I could have, because I kept waking up the next day and people would be like, you tried to kill yourself last night. And I'd be like, well, I was drunk. And they'd be like, well, I'm fucking traumatized. So like I couldn't keep it going because it was just too, you know, people would, they'd be like, you're hurting us.
Yeah. I remember one time I was in the north end of Boston, which is like Little Italy. And I fell asleep on the side of on a building, like on the ledge of a building. It was like a 6-story, and it was like it's like the thick little mini wall around the building, and I was on top of the thing, so it was like this wide. It was like whatever, as wide as my ass, and I was just laying on it, and I like completely fell asleep. And my friend Ryan like woke me up with like his left hand covering my hip so I would not fall, and like pulled me off the roof. And he's like, dude, you were just asleep there. And I was like, what? I'm like, and I was mad. I was like, what are you doing? I'm asleep. Let me fucking sleep, you fucking douche. And he's like, look where you are. And I looked down. It was like a 6-story. Like if I had rolled off, I would have just landed whatever the fuck, face first.
Yeah.
And I remember like a girl being like, that was crazy. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Just wanted to let you know that Mindful Metal Jacket is brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in male grooming. Below the belt, folks. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. That's right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code LAUGHBUTTON at manscaped.com. It's the best. They sent me some of this stuff. I absolutely love it. I use it all the time. It is great. It's one of my favorite things. I use it. It's in the shower. My wife uses it also, even though she's not a man. They're great. The upgraded trimmer includes a multi-function on-off switch that can engage a travel lock. That way it's not going off in your bag. They don't think you got a bomb in there. It's happened to all of us before. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. The Lawnmower 4.0 even allows you to customize your trim through additional guard links with sizes 1 through 4. You can get 20% off and free shipping right now with the code LAUGHBUTTON. 20% off, free shipping with the code LAUGHBUTTON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code LAUGHBUTTON. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
One thing I love about, I don't know if we can mention it, but, you know, programs of recovery is the idea that like your God or your spiritual connection does not have to be what you once thought it was. So I always thought like prayer had to be on your knees in the prayer position. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray to you today. You know what I mean? And so when I would talk to God or whatever, is this okay? Am I clocking in with you properly? You know? And I've really gotten away from my contact with God, but the desperation in places I've been in the past couple months have really kind of kicked my ass into making me have no choice but to talk to whatever is out there. So in a way, I'm grateful for kind of the shit that I've been through in the past couple months. But I think that whole thing of, am I doing this right? Am I praying okay? Am I talking to a being outside of myself in the proper way? And it's like, well, it's up to you.
Right,
Sure.
right. Yeah. I mean, and I feel that gratitude feeling is like of going through shit. Like, I think about that all the time with drinking. I'm like, it was so miserable to be such a fucking drunk maniac and blacking out
Right.
and fucking up relationships and career and all that stuff and just feeling like shit. But it makes me so grateful that I went through it now, because I'm like, oh,
Right.
I have this thing to compare my life to, of like, this is what it would be like. And I talk about that all the time and think about it all the time, where I'm like, I'll go through a weekend on the road or a quarantine, or I'm sick or have anxiety. And I'm like, imagine how much worse it would be if I was drinking. If like, you know what I mean?
Well, that's the crazy thing is when I was drinking, I was like, God damn it. If I could just shut out the world and have nothing to do and just fucking bottle of vodka on my knee, rocking chair, all the free time in the world, I would finally be happy. And then now that that's an option, I was like, I would be in hell.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying right off the bat when this started happening, the pandemic, whatever, lockdown, whatever we call it. I was like, I said it to Sarah, who's sober as well, obviously. Maybe it's not obvious, but she is. And I'm saying obvious because you know that. But right away, I was like, this is like all of our fucking prayers being answered when we were drinking.
Yes.
That's like the idea. Like, that's when the only time I was happy when I was drinking was like, I would go on vacation with my family up in Maine. And I was like, all right, I'm away from comedy. I'm away from show business. No one in my business is up here. And my family, they're stuck with me. So even if I black out and break everything in the house, which I did, I was like, they're going to have to still love me. So I felt protected. And that's what this kind of feels like. We were like, all right, we can't leave. We can't work. We have all day. And I would 100% be drinking at fucking 9:30 in the morning until 10 at night or whenever I passed out.
Sure.
But there is even part of me like that alcoholic thinking of like, fuck, why couldn't have this happened 9 years ago?
Yeah.
I would have ripped it up.
Yeah. I know. Well, I was like, man, I kind of made my own little quarantines every time I got fired from a job, you know, before it got so bad, I had to like go away, you know? So it was like, I had bits and pieces of my own homegrown quarantine, you know, but it was never, and it always ended in desperation and in a you know, crawling on my knees to take that substance away from me, you know, and I really, you know, because I hadn't gone to, are you allowed to mention?
I don't care.
I had gotten away from Alcoholics Anonymous and it really saved my life. I mean, I've lived in halfway houses. I've worked in halfway houses. You know, I have been in detoxes and hospital, all as a result of my drinking. And I've been so far removed from drink that I've convinced myself that I don't need to go to those things anymore. And it's very not true. But I really admire the people that are like, you know, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic, and I just have to be grateful I didn't put a drug or drink in my body. I'm 35 years sober, and every day is a gift. And my sobriety, I'm just so grateful. I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's 35 years. Of course you didn't put a drug or drink in your body in the morning, Kevin,
Right.
And I feel like I've been so far removed, finding that gratitude for being sober. It's there, but being on fire with it is not. And I'd love to get back to that. But I've also joined another program in recovery, SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. And I feel much closer to that and have found an identification with the fellows in that's hit me so much harder than AA has recently, that's the place I go where I'm like, it's been such and such days sober of not being in contact with my qualifier that I am just so grateful. And like, that's like the sting that I'm dealing with is the thing that burnt my ass, that put me back into the rooms. But I really admire just hearing that gratitude and that, being completely on fire with the program of recovery. I just admire it so much.
Yeah, well, it is important. I was just talking about this with Sarah too. Like, it is important to remember that we are those things still. So like, we went up to hang out with my family for the weekend and we worked and we just went haywire. We ate, McDonald's, and we ate all kinds of fucking candy, and I was smoking cigars. And we were kind of just like, oh, I feel like shit. And what are we doing? And it is like, I had to remind myself and her that like, well, we are fucking alcoholics, that we just haven't drank in years. But like, my instinct is to.
And that behavior is still there.
Yeah. My instinct, my natural instinct, my first thought when hanging out with family or stress is like, let's drink 40 Captain and Cokes and just be fucking, well, fuck all you motherfuckers. And so I'm like, if I got to eat McDonald's a couple times, every few weeks to not get drunk and try to fuck my aunt or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, just, get through it and it's fine. Because you do have to stay in contact with the fact that we're fucking lunatics. We're completely out of our minds.
Totally. Yeah. And it's such a fun phrase of like, I came from a drinking, stayed from a thinking.
Right,
it's like
right.
So true, and I think that's why I would relapse all the time, because it's almost like a get out of jail free card of like, you're not drinking. Oh my God, you're so great for you. You're such a good person, and it would be like that little pat on the back of like feeling good. And, you start to get little things back that makes your life so much better because you thought you'd never get them. So I would relapse to almost I wouldn't relapse to feel better, but coming back into the rooms off a relapse would make me feel better immediately, because it was like, oh, I put down booze, everything's better now. Oh, I put down the drink, things are better now. I'm not drinking, things are amazing. And it's like that would then die off to the point where I would have to relapse again because things got so bad because I wasn't drinking.
Right.
I didn't have that thing that masked everything. And then once that flushed out of my body, I was left with myself. And I was like, oh, fuck. This sucks. The man in the mirror is a problem.
Right.
Putting in your body.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're the problem. So we're coming to the end here, but
sucks.
We're coming towards the end here, but I do want to hear about, when did you first? I feel like you seem like a guy that started probably drinking or drugging young. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't consistent, but I had my first drink in I think like like fifth grade. My grandparents had beer in the garage and they were having beer. I was like, can I have one? They're like, sure. And I just had like a honey brown lager with some pretzel sticks. And I would like drink but I didn't like the taste. So I like didn't even drink all of it. And I don't even remember getting a feeling, but in seventh grade, I remember getting like drunk and I was like, I want to feel this way forever. And then in eighth grade, I got drunk on my birthday and I went home and tried to fight my stepdad.
And I was like, this is not good. And like freshman year of high school, I got so drunk at a party, I faked being sick for the week because I was like so embarrassed to see everyone at school, you know, like it was just like immediately just like bad. But addicted to everything, like smoking. I started smoking in like 6th grade and then stopped, and then 8th grade stopped, freshman year stopped. And I didn't smoke again until I was like 21. And then now it's like nonstop. But even like masturbation, I was addicted to when I was younger because that was the thing that took me out of myself. That was the thing that I got like a relief. And in a way, I'm like grateful that I just did that instead of finding that relief in alcohol until later, because I feel like that would have opened the door to me doing other things. And I would have been way more susceptible to being like, yeah, I'll try heroin. Why not? You know?
Right.
So like masturbation was like the first thing I really got addicted to, where when something was going wrong, I didn't feel okay. It was like, well, here's a thing that can make me feel all right, you know? And that's something that I don't really talk a lot about because I think that's like jarring to hear. But I think a lot of people can relate to just wanting to get outside yourself. And it's like a homegrown high, you know? But also we were like choking ourselves in like 6th grade to try to get high too. You know, it's like, did you ever do that? The fucking choke thing where you like lose your air?
People did. I never did it. I was a big pussy. I think Sarah did. I'm looking over here like she's there. She's not. But I think Sarah did that. She talked about they all did that, would knock each other out and stuff. And she also roofied herself. So she's just a big fucking lunatic.
That's great.
It's always fun when you start dating someone. She's like, yeah, I used to take Rufinol or whatever. And you're like, what's that?
Cryohypnol. Like,
yeah.
Come again?
You're like, great. That's great. That's really neat. But no, so I never did that, but I was afraid. I mean, that's why I started drinking late, because I was afraid of all this shit. I was a big pussy. I was like, drinking, what are you insane? That's crazy. And choking yourselves and all that stuff. But masturbation, I definitely relate to. And I still feel that way now when I get like really angry or something happens or I see somebody did something. My first thought is to be like, let me go jerk off.
Yeah.
And I don't always follow up on it, but like that was always how I felt, was like,
totally,
I gotta go. And like when I went through like breakups, I'd jerk off like 7 times a day just because I'm like, I would be so angry that I'm like, let me just put myself in this other alternative. It's just, I mean, masturbation basically is just an alternative world essentially for that, whatever, few minutes.
Totally. Yeah. And what fucked me up too is, you know, I talked about being Catholic. I had so much guilt that for the first like couple years I was masturbating, I was praying for forgiveness while I was doing it, because I was told that when someone dies, they're with you all the time. So I thought my father was like watching, and I had to be like, I'm sorry, Dad, you know, and that just totally fucked me up, like with what I was thinking about or looking at, you know, but at the same time, I was willing to go through that pain of that because the relief was worth it to get outside myself, you know? Right. So I think that set the stage for me being like, oh, I'll black out and I'll wake up on the street in a pile of trash. My shit's gone. I'm bleeding, but it was worth it because I got outside myself, you know? Right. It was worth it because I didn't have to feel, you know?
Yeah, that was an amazing thing with drinking for me, is like, and some people will talk about it, like that first drink, you're like, oh, I got it. I see. This makes sense. Like it was like
flushes over your body.
Yeah, exactly. Like clouds parted, and I'm like, this is it. And then I had that thing immediately where I identify with like I was a Tom Waits song or something. I was like, I'll be the drunk guy. I'm at the bar. You don't know me, man. I'm deep. And then you identify with that.
I thought I was Russ Cole from True Detective.
Right.
That's who I thought I was. I thought I was Russ Cole, and you know, like a Three Dog Night song come together, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I just thought that I was like a Marshall Tucker Band song come to life. That's who I thought I was. And I was not. I was a fucking mess that wanted to be around.
You look back and you're like, oh, you can romanticize all those ideas of drinking and being this thing, but you're like, it's miserable. I was miserable. Yeah. They're miserable. You know, you feel fucking fat. You don't actually sleep well. Your relationships are shit.
And also sober, I can romanticize pain, and I can romanticize being the struggle guy, or the guy that just can't get love right, the guy that always has it and fucks it up. Like, I can romanticize anything that's negative, and I really have to work my fucking dick off to romanticize getting to the other side of it. Like, I'm incredibly positive, and I really try to be, upbeat and everything. But once I shut my front door, it's like I hang all that stuff up, and I'm like, okay, now I can really just fucking be the downer I was always meant to be,
Yeah, no, I had that. And that was a big moment in my life that came with early sobriety. Was in our business in comedy, I was so connected and identified with like this loser, this lovable loser. I got edited off of Last Comic Standing. I never got new faces at Just for Laughs, and then eventually I did way later, but then I bombed, and it was I couldn't get a manager, and I couldn't get a late night, and that was like my thing. I've just been featuring for too long, and I'm down. Don't even tell me your problems because I have it the worst. And then I got sober, and I was like, hey, a lot of these things I want, I never even tried for. Why don't I just try to do that? And then I was like, that classic like alcoholic thing, I was like, I can't even get a late night set. And then I literally got sober and was like, I have actually made literally zero effort to be on any TV. I've never submitted a tape. Like, it's not like they were like, no, fuck you. I wanted them to come to my house and be like, hey, hi, I'm Dave Letterman, and I'd like you to come do my show.
Yeah, and if you never try, you're not a failure.
Right. And that's part of why I identify with that. So it had to be this new thing of like a new identification. I still struggle not to do it again now, to fall back into that of like, no, I can succeed. I'm good. I'm funny. I work hard. So going back to the book is, so you sort of recognize your thought and or whatever it is, I'm stressed, and so I think I forget the three things. So I'm going to eat, and then the reaction is, the result is I'm not as stressed because I'm eating this food. Is that basically right? Or smoking a cigarette, whatever it is.
Yeah, the trigger behavior and a result. And in fact, if anybody wants to do this themselves, instead of having to go to a psychiatrist and have them write out trigger behavior result on a piece of paper, I just created a website, mapmyhabit.com, that anybody can just go to, and they can download a free PDF of this and start mapping out any of their habits, whether it's stress, anxiety, worry, procrastination, or anything.
And so how do we go then from there? So we start mapping, and then where do we go from there that it starts to, how does it work? Are we kind of reshaping our brain? Because I keep hearing in all these meditation things that the brain is plastic and we can kind of change these habits. And I've managed to do it. I used to drink every day alcohol, and I don't. And I stopped drinking Coca-Cola a couple of years ago. And some of them, I get nervous to try to even re-explore. Sometimes even the book is like triggering because I'm like reading about anxiety and panic, and I'm like, no, I've been doing so well, I don't want to go back into there. So how do we unwind anxiety, as it were?
Yeah. So the first step is just understanding how our minds work and mapping them out. And so the book talks about some of these basic mechanisms, like these survival mechanisms, and how they were set up, which can help both reassure us that, oh, this is a normal process, but also help us see how we might be taking this process in a way and trying to force it to change behaviors in a way that's not helpful. So, I have a chapter on, anti-anxiety strategies that don't work because, I don't know if you ever saw that. I'm sure you are familiar with Bob Newhart, the comedian, right?
Certainly, yeah.
So he had this great skit from the 70s called Just Stop It. Did you ever see this one?
If I did, I don't remember. I don't know it well.
So a woman walks into a therapist's office, Bob Newhart as the therapist, and she says, basically, I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. And they go back and forth, and basically everything she brings at him, he just leans over his desk and says, just stop it. just stop it, just stop it. And I won't give the end of the skit away, but it's worth the 5 minutes of watching because it's pretty funny. But he's highlighting something that we've been carrying forward since antiquity, where this idea that reason can outcompete the passions, including anxiety being one of those passions, the emotions. And, we have failed miserably as a species doing that. Look at the diet industry. I wish I could just, my patient could walk in and say, Doc, I overeat. And I could just say, just stop it. Okay, you don't have to see me again. Well, I'm smoking, just stop it. Done. I worry a lot, just stop it. Right. So we take these willpower based approaches. Yet, if you look at how the brain works, our brains, the willpower, the part associated with willpower is the weakest part of the brain. And ironically, it goes offline when we get stressed or anxious. So it's not reliable if it's even, if it even has any strength at all. So here, it's important to just kind of understand that we can't just think our way out of anxiety. We can't think our way out of worrying. And often when we try to think our way out of things, it actually creates more worry because it's not working. So here, understanding this process, that's that first step, mapping these pieces out. But that understanding also extends to understanding how our brains actually change behavior. And our brains change behavior based on one thing, which is how rewarding a behavior is. Okay. That's the second step, is really checking to see how rewarding is this. I'll give a concrete example. My patients that come in and try to quit smoking, I don't tell them to just stop it. I actually do the opposite. I say, just smoke it. Just go for it. Smoke, but pay attention as you do. Okay. And what they realize is that cigarettes taste like shit, right? They don't taste very good. And in one study, we got 5 times the quit rates of gold standard treatment with helping people pay attention as they smoke. In a study we just finished, that my lab just finished, we found that both with smoking and overeating, if we have people pay attention as they're doing the behavior, that reward value changes. Basically, it changes in their brain. We can watch that reward value shift from rewarding to not rewarding, to the point where they'll actually shift behavior. So they'll stop overeating, they'll stop smoking. So and it doesn't take a lot. You're talking about neuroplasticity, this buzzword that everybody loves to write about in popular press. Well, my lab can actually study this. As a neuroscientist, this is something I can actually look at. So we can study this. It takes 10 to 15 times of somebody paying attention as they're overeating, as they're smoking, to significantly change that reward value to the point where behavior shifts. Okay, so that's that next step, is basically helping our brain see very clearly that this old behavior, it's not doing it for me. So overeating, I just feel blah, or for example, with my patient who was stress eating, he realized, oh, stress eating doesn't fix my anxiety and it makes me feel more guilty. This guy went on to lose over 100 pounds.
Interesting. Well, so again, several things come up, and it does feel like a lot of kind of what you're saying is acceptance in some way. I mean, so much of what we do, stress and anxiety and suffering, comes from trying to change something. And in reality, it feels like kind of accepting the thing is the most helpful, which is what was so helpful with me with panic attacks. Was I would start to have a panic and I would feel it coming and be like, oh my God, I have to stop this. How is this? I'm not gonna be able to do this, or I'm not gonna be able to perform if I have a panic attack before going on TV or on stage, or I won't be able to leave the house, which eventually, kind of like we were talking about with Dave, with driving, it can lead to agoraphobia and people don't want to leave their house because of fear of a panic attack. But what helped me the most, and I think this is similar to what you're saying, is accepting it, which sounds so counterintuitive, of just kind of going, okay, feel this. All right, my heart's racing. I'm having tingling. I'm shaking. I'm starting to sweat. And then kind of going, all right, that's what's happening now. That's all this is. It's not, I'm going to survive it, which feels similar to quitting drinking or eating. I need to eat this thing. I want to eat this thing. And then you feel like I'm a piece of shit for eating this thing or for smoking.
Yeah.
Instead of just going, yeah, I smoke, and then kind of allowing yourself to feel like, I don't like the way it makes me feel. And I had that with drinking. And that's, I mean, people talk about that with alcoholism or drug addiction, is sort of hitting bottom, is that feeling of, I need to change this because I feel like shit. It's sort of for the first time really being fully mindful of what it's doing to you. And I remember talking to my therapist about anxiety and panic and being like, I'm suffering, and him saying, well, not enough to change anything. You're not suffering enough, evidently, which, you know, again, I don't want to recommend people go and do drugs until they've suffered too much or whatever it is, but I don't know if any of that made sense. I'm kind of volleying a big mess back to you, but did that sort of make any sense?
It makes complete sense. And your therapist, in very concrete terms, is talking about reward value, where he was saying, if I'm understanding what you're saying, he was saying, hey, look, if it's still rewarding for you, you're going to keep doing it, right? If you look, you can even look back at the ancient Buddhist psychology. There's this phrase that's basically where the Buddha is talking about, it wasn't until I explored gratification to its end that knowledge and vision arose. So he's talking about getting enlightened, which seems like a good thing. And he was talking about how he couldn't get enlightened until he had basically hit rock bottom with all the things that he was doing. So there's the story of Siddhartha is around, he's got all the worldly pleasures and that's not good enough. And then he becomes this aesthetic and he starves himself and that doesn't get him enlightened. And he realized it wasn't either of these extremes. It was really about seeing how his mind was working. So that's the piece. It sounds like your therapist was talking about this, saying, hey, if your brain is still enchanted with something, good luck changing it, whether it's the just stop at willpower approach or anything else. It's really about zooming in and asking, and I like this simple question. What am I getting from this? Right? Really feeling into this. What am I getting from this? And we, like you're saying, you don't have to hit rock bottom. It can be any moment that we find ourselves scrolling on social media again, where we can ask ourselves, what am I getting from this? Is this actually improving my quality of life? Or am I just mindlessly scrolling, like pressing a lever like a rat looking for food, which is basically surprise or soothing or whatever. There are a bunch of different rewards that our brains get with social media because it's designed that way to keep us scrolling.
Mindful Metal Jacket is hosted by comedian Joe List, produced by Joe List, edited by Matt Kleinschmidt, executive producers Robert Kelly and Matt Kleinschmidt for the Laugh Button Podcasts.
Hey, everybody. Just wanted to let you know that this episode of Mindful Metal Jacket is brought to you by Manscaped. Right now, can you imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed, and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom? Well, I can tell you right now, this is a fantastic product. They sent it to me. I am one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I'm absolutely blown away by it. It is fantastic. I would accept no substitutes. The craftsmanship and the details on the 4.0 are next level. You got to get some of this stuff. They sent me a whole big box of it. I was going to show you, but it's out of my reach. Just take my word for it. It's fantastic. It's my favorite thing that I'm using right now. The Lawnmower 4.0 allows you to customize your trim through additional guard links, sizes 1 through 4. And did I also mention wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. You don't want that thing going dead mid-shave. Right now, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code LAUGHBUTTON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code LAUGHBUTTON. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Thank you, and thanks for listening. Please support the people that support our show.